now we have with us here Dr. Siew. She is the founder of H.E.R Research Laboratories. We're going to ask her a few questions as she shares about her entrepreneurial and leadership journey. All right, now Dr. Ong, share with us what made you want to start H.E.R Research Laboratories. What was your background? Yeah.
Yes. First of all, thank you, Renee, for this opportunity to share about my entrepreneurship journey and experience, and a very good afternoon to the audience listening in here as well. I'm trained as a cell and molecular biologist. I started to really like cell and molecular biology in my undergrad days in the university, due to the courses that I was taking.
Okay.
And in particular, the application in understanding about cancer, why it is happening, was really fascinating to me. So I went on to study as a postgraduate student.
Wow.
By doing research to understand more and more about the mechanisms of cancer, why the cells are growing, why they don't die, why they spread. And with a lot of those background, I went on in year 2007 to join the industry. I worked at the Eli Lilly pharmaceutical company to do drug discovery for cancer. So I had a transition from academic research into industry research, and that really made me feel that to apply things that I have discovered in my research. I work in the labs, day and night for 16 years at that time, and I really feel there's a lot that we can take it one step further to develop drugs that so many people suffering from cancer can benefit from.
Right.
And I tested out that idea. I work in the industry and I really liked it. And in year 2010, I did it yet a different way by setting up my own company called H.E.R Research Laboratories, whereby essentially is applying everything that I've learned in academia, in industry, and applying that into my own ideas. So when I worked for different groups previously, I have a lot of freedom to test out my ideas and all that, but yet it is still very different when you came up with the idea yourself, implement it yourself with the kind of outcomes that you think and you hope can happen. So in H.E.R Research Laboratories, today we are very focused on developing diagnostic tests, in particular for sepsis, which is a condition that results due to infection that enters into the bloodstream. The immune reactions are very overwhelming, and it causes multiple organ failure. It is a very critical, time-sensitive emergency condition, and today it remains very hard to diagnose at the early stage. So I went from being a cancer biologist to essentially infectious disease. I went from drug discovery and development into diagnostic test development.
Wow,
so that's my journey.
Wow. Yeah. I used to do stem cell research back then, a few years back, and I totally understand that to do anything in the lab, it takes a long time. It takes years and years of clinical trials before it can go out to test on patients and things like that. So what were your challenges that you faced when you started H.E.R Research Laboratories? What were some of the challenges when, 7-8 years back when you started, and today as well, could you share with us?
Sure. So 7-8 years ago, the biomedical sciences industry in Singapore essentially, took off in a big way in about 20 years ago, I would say. So 7 or 8 years ago, while we have achieved a lot in that the industry has grown, there is a lot more scientists, there are a lot of more support from the government, from the upstream research side, to start a company and do the R&D from ground zero,
Right.
and to then translate it into a product,
Yes.
test the product in clinical trials, manufacture the prototypes, run it through regulatory approvals, establish the standards and quality management system, commercialize it. This is, to take it all the way from beginning to the end product is not very common 7 or 8 years ago.
Yes.
So in terms of challenges, to obtain the financial support, because these things require
Capital.
right from beginning,
Right.
is capital intensive. You need to have a lab equipped with all the instruments that you need. The labs also need very specialized fitting. For example, the air systems in a lab like ours is filtered, the disposal of biohazard goods and everything. So it's capital intensive. So such infrastructure were costly to start with, and they're not readily available except in the universities, in the research institutes, and private companies that have a lot of resources. So usually it's MNCs.
Right.
So financing part is one. Secondly is recruitment of your team members.
Right.
So there are a lot of people who are very used to the idea of working for an established organization.
Yes. Yeah. The farmers.
The big farmers, the universities, the research institutes that are all established. So it is not a common career choice, because it's sort of untested, and there is a certain amount of risk, or in some situations it can be very high risk because the company may not have all the support to go there.
It's like a startup.
It's a startup, yes, exactly.
Okay, so how do you attract talent then?
Yeah, so first of all, I started doing a lot of the things multitasking. So I'm the scientist, I'm the business development person, I'm the operations person, and so on. And along the way, yes, I met like-minded people. I really try to convince them of my vision. I try to, understand what drives them. And as I bring people on board, I try to, make it as de-risked as possible for them. I try to remove all the risks that they could be facing, Yes.
Right.
So in some cases, it could be trying to help them as much as possible to learn about the specific areas of work that they need to do, so that they don't need to spend too much time doing it by themselves without guidance. So it's about helping them as much as possible, the moral support. So it's a startup, so exactly.
Right? So you wear multiple hats. You're like the CEO, the founder of the company. You're the scientist, so you're the master of your own trade.
Yes.
And you have to manage people.
Yes.
You have to manage and make sure that there's ROI.
Yes.
Right? That the kits are sellable.
Yes.
Right, you wear so many hats. So can you share with us what are some of your strategies to ensuring the success of this company of today?
Yes. So I think a very important part of it is we took a model involving firstly doing contract research. So we perform the R&D for other companies as a service.
Right.
So in that way, prior to having received venture capital, private equity investment, we are able to try and generate revenues ourselves. So we do the projects for other companies simply as a contract. We do not own the intellectual property of that. We do the work to the best we can, deliver the results, and they pay us.
Right.
So that was a way to get going.
To bootstrap.
To
the current
bootstrap,
project.
yes.
Okay.
But that could only go so far. By the second year of doing that, it was great that we were able to generate, our starting money on top of what I put in from my own. After 2 years, one of the things we found when you do contract research work is that there are other countries and other companies that will do the same thing for much cheaper price, possibly because, in some countries they have lower operation costs,
Right.
something like that. And it becomes, very hard to get the profit margins.
Yes.
Yeah. A bit of a price war can happen.
Right.
Yeah, because they put out the projects publicly for bidding, and then, many times the cheaper
Yes, the
quotes
cheaper
will
ones will
get.
get it.
Yeah. So the company transited into developing our own intellectual property. So I've done a lot of research over the years in developing biomarkers and drug targets. So that's what we did for the clients, for the
Yes.
contract R&D services. And we also apply this kind of competencies that we have to discover new biomarkers and file patents. So we identify the area of sepsis because, just like cancer, it's a very, very big medical problem.
Right.
So the unmet need is very compelling. So the company, based on the revenues we have generated from the contract research, we plow it into developing in-house R&D program. We couldn't do a lot except one project, so we chose sepsis, and
Right.
we developed the whole program, discover the biomarkers, validate them in clinical trials, and file a patent for that.
Right.
And because of this proof of concept results that we can indeed develop new biomarkers for sepsis, which is a very long-aged problem, but still not having good solutions. So we have essentially a very new approach towards trying to identify sepsis. We find biomarkers for that.
Right.
In up to recently, all the sepsis diagnostic method have been based on microbiology. That means you take the doctors will order a blood culture of the patient and send the blood sample to the lab to grow up the bugs. And if
Yeah.
it grow, you say yes, there is sepsis. But we are using genes from the patient's blood. So these are the biomarkers that we found. So to answer your question, how we overcome is that in 2015, very early on in the development phase of our internal R&D, we licensed this patent in a non-exclusive way to a diagnostics company in Germany. So we were not yet, completed in the full development of the diagnostic test.
Yes.
What we have done is we have discovered the biomarkers for sepsis, validated them in clinical trials. This data was convincing and complete enough for a licensing deal. So we licensed that to a German company. That generated for us the
Good
next,
income.
yes, the income to continue the journey.
Oh, congratulations
Yes,
on
thank
that.
you.
All
Yeah.
right. It's really rare for, specialists,
Yes.
scientists especially, to be entrepreneurs, and yet alone a woman entrepreneur. So what do you think are some of the important support system that should be, to encourage more women into this field of science and leadership and entrepreneurship? Yeah.
Yes. If today, actually, the R&D field, the biotechnology field, medical technology, pharmaceutical, remains quite male-dominated, even
Yes.
today.
Actually, in a lot of industry sectors,
Yes,
right? Yeah.
correct, yes. I think support in multiple ways are very important. Firstly, the women who are already entrepreneurs, who are already leaders, I think they themselves, this would be the people, I think, are most important, because they are like role models to other females who are thinking about it.
Right.
Yes, because they, are living examples that it can work,
Yes.
it can happen.
Right.
So I do believe that more and more females like ourselves, interacting with other entrepreneurs, those who are thinking about it, is important, and to share what sorts of problems that they face, which is why I'm here today also,
Right.
to share more what sort of problems, so that at the same time we can talk about what are the possible solutions. There are always many solutions to the same problem, but what are those solutions? I think it's good to share and talk about it.
As well.
The strategies,
Yeah.
yes. Secondly, women intrinsically have the roles of being mothers if they have children,
Yes.
and need to also
Or
to run
caregivers to the parents as
caregivers
well.
to the parents, run the family. I mean, this remains a very big part of a woman's responsibilities and roles. So, and that takes a lot of time, a lot of effort, and it is very hard for women if they run a company, especially a startup, to also have to manage the family and young children. So I think support coming in to help with the family, right? I think in Singapore it's quite good that domestic helpers are quite readily available.
Right, it helps. Yeah.
Yes, we have very good preschool and childcare systems. I think these are really, really important. I think another important part of it would be the culture. I think businesses, industries, all should, look at this inequality in terms of the numbers of female leaders and entrepreneurs as something that we want to work on to balance it more. Because after all, the diversity of ideas, of the ways of doing things that comes from the female,
Yes.
and I say so because the mind of
Yes.
the female is different than the mind of the male.
Yes.
So, and women being essentially 50% of the world population, I think it is important that in everything that we do, be it to develop new things, problems to solve and so on, the diversity of women's input, I think, is very important. In fact, the lack of it can cause the solutions to be not as good as it possibly can be.
I totally agree, but we're not
Yeah.
trying to be against any gender, right? We're totally into inclusion,
Yes.
and diversity.
Diversity,
I totally
yeah.
agree with
Yes,
that.
I mean, scientifically speaking, the woman's mind, how it thinks, how it wires and therefore proposes solution and deals with circumstances is very different. It's a
Yes.
very valuable resource.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it's scientific, right?
It's
So
scientific.
we have proof.
It's proven.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what would be your advice to entrepreneurs out there, especially in a field like yours, which is so unique? It's
Yeah.
really rare, right? But what would be your advice to them when they want to set up any business? What is a must-have? What sort of mindset and traits they should have?
Yes.
Yeah.
So mine is in the area of technology,
Yes.
medical technology. So for women who wants to participate in entrepreneurship in technology space, I tend to think that a deep understanding of the tech is important. Yeah. It is a business, but it is a technology solution.
Right.
Yes. To take a technology which at the beginning usually is a very abstract idea all the way to the end, whereby you have a tangible product or service that are selling. In between that whole value chain, there are many things involved.
Right.
So therefore, I would think that it is needed that one be able to learn, different disciplines, different
Be all-rounded, so to speak.
be all-rounded.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be very demanding, but I think it's sometimes not as effective when you think that yes, I have the team, but it is still quite important that in the same mind, especially the leaders, it can be as comprehensive and all-rounded as possible. So the tech part, the ability to learn multiple fields. I also think that it is very important to have a clear vision of what one wants to achieve in her life, and be very clear what is the reason for wanting to start the business or to be an entrepreneur. So that vision and clarity of that direction, I think is important, you know. So it is quite high risk, I think, for what we do, because it takes a lot of time.
Right.
It costs a lot of money. It is not something we just go in easily. So it's got to integrate into your overall vision and meaning of life to go into it. And once that is clear, you know, I think it becomes then not so difficult, because the mind and the heart is very aligned.
Yeah.
It makes it easy to work hard. It makes it easy to do exactly.
Yeah.
It makes it easy to do the due sacrifices, and it's very peaceful. And to go the long distance year after year, day in, day out.
Yeah. 24/7.
24/7.
No rest.
Yes, exactly. And finally, I think it's very important to be one who is someone that people trust. That means, you know, the integrity, the credibility, the skills.
The skill set
yeah,
as well.
because in an entrepreneurship journey, before you have the funding, before you have the assets of the infrastructure, the team, and so on, actually what you have is idea. What you have is vision, and the trust that people have in you.
Yes.
Yes. So
before that can build
before,
upon. Yeah.
yes, exactly. So I think, you know, integrity in one word would be how I summarize it. That people trust you to want to help you.
Yeah.
People trust that
Take you further.
and take you further.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing with us your insights
Yes.
as well. And we're pretty much done with this interview with Dr. Ong. And thank you so much. If you'd like to meet her live, you could join us at the H.E.R Asia Summit on the 26th of September. We'll see you there.